In this notes video, we're going to continue working on Chapter 10, Lesson 6, focusing on problem solving. You need to be on page 833. All right, we are going to read this problem number 12. It says the histogram shows the distances a volleyball team travels to their games. What percentage of the games did they travel more than 24 miles? Okay, so let's focus first on the most important words in the question. So the question starts with the word what, and we really need to understand what the word percentage means. And we also need to focus on more than 24 miles. Okay, so let's talk about percentage again. We spent most of the first 6 weeks talking about fractions, decimals, and percentages. And every single number can be written as a percentage, a fraction, and a decimal. Okay. And basically the word percent means out of 100. So if we'd like, for example, have 50 out of 100, that can be written as 50%. Okay. Now this can also be reduced to 5/10, which would still be 50%. 5/10 can also be simplified to 1/2, and 1/2 is also equivalent to 50%. Now we have a way of writing numbers using place value, using decimals, and if I had 50 out of 100, that actually would be written as 50 hundredths, because this has two place values after the decimal, and the first decimal is the tenths place, which can be written as a fraction 1/10, and the second place is the hundredths place, which is 1/100th. So hence 50 hundredths. So you can see there's an equivalent decimal, fraction, and percent, and that's going to be important because we're going to need to use that understanding to solve this problem. All right, so the first thing we need to realize is, how do I read a histogram? And those are very much like bar graphs, but they have, instead of specific things for each bar, they have ranges of numbers. So the number of games is on the y-axis, the number of miles is the x-axis, and so there were some games that were either between 10 and 14 miles away, and if I look up the y-axis, I could label this as 3. And then we have 15 to 19 miles away, and again, if I come over here, I can see that is 7. And then we have 20 to 24, and we look over to the y-axis, and that would be labeled as 9. Okay, so using that same technique, go ahead and tell me, how many games did we travel in this word problem that were between 25 and 29 miles away? Go ahead and look across the y-axis and tell me what number that is. Very good, that number is 4. And let's do the same thing for games that are between 30 and 34 miles away. How many games was that? Go ahead and look to the y-axis and tell me what that is. Very good. That answer is 1. So the first thing we need to recognize is, well, how many games were more than 24 miles away? So that involves the last two of these bars. So what is 4 plus 1? Go ahead and answer that question for me, please. Very good. That answer is 5. Now, in order for it to be percent, we have to know what the total is. So 5 of the games were more than 24 miles away, but how many total games were there? So this is where you're going to add up every single one of the numbers in the bars. Go ahead and do that for me. What is 3 plus 7 plus 9 plus 4 plus 1? That's exactly right. 3 plus 7 is 10, and 9 plus 1 is 10. So 10 plus 10 is 20 plus 4. So out of the total number, 5 of those were more than 24 miles away, but there were 24 total games, which brings us back to the question is we're supposed to find a percent, but what we have here is a fraction. So how can I make a fraction into a percent? Well, the key is decimals. So how can I convert this? Well, one technique we did use for some things is to actually multiply 24 times something equals 100, but there's really no like quick answer for that. It's going to be some kind of decimal that would be involved here. So instead of doing that, we're going to convert this fraction into a decimal, and we do that by using what operation? Answer that for me, please. Very good. We do that by dividing. So we're going to take the number 5, and we're going to divide that by 24. In order to do this, we have to recognize that that decimal of the 5 is right there, and we're going to have to annex a 0. Go ahead and solve that division problem for me, please. Keep in mind it does say that we can round to the nearest tenth. Okay, now this is going to be the answer to the division problem. So we multiply by 2, we got 48, brought the 2 down, annexed another 0. So 24 can go into 20 0 times. That's where that 0 came from. Annexed another 0. 8 times 24 is 192. Then we got 8 annexed to 0. 3 times 24 is 72. 8. And as we noticed here, 80, 72, 80, 72. That's going to go on forever. So this actually is a repeating decimal where this 33333 will go on for to infinity. Okay, so all right, now we have a decimal. So how is it that we're going to get this back to a percent? Well, if we go back over to our review, we notice that 50 hundredths is the same as 50%. 5 tenths is the same as 50%. 1/2 is the same as 50%. And so the decimal, when you divide 1 by 2, you get 0.5. When you divide 5 by 10, you get 0.5. When you divide 50 by 100, you get 0.50. So look at how we can see the similarity between the 50% and the 50 hundredths. What we actually do to convert a decimal back into a percent is we actually multiply by 100. Okay, so let's multiply by 100. So if we have 100 and we multiply, and it said we can round to the nearest tenth, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. So if we multiply 0.20833, repeating forever. When we multiply a number by 100, we actually move the decimal to the right 2 places. So that is going to end up being 20.8. And since we're rounding to the tenths place, 3 is going to make this stay the 8 tenths. So the answer is that 20 and 8/10% of the games were more than 24 miles away. Okay. So, and again, we'll talk more, and we've reviewed this throughout the year, but when you multiply by multiples of 10, since our whole place value system is based on tens, that involves moving the decimal. When you multiply by multiples of 10 to the right, when you divide, you move it to the left. And if you're confused by that, please come to Math Help. We'll do some more practice with that. All right, so what I want you to think about now is what's the most important thing to remember about this lesson? Go ahead and think about that carefully. You need to watch the video again. That's great. Watch the video again. But I want you to go ahead and answer that for me now. Very good. Thank you for your thoughtful answer. Now, just for your own notes, I'm going to go ahead and show you the bottom of this screen. I turned the answers on. The first thing we did was we determined how many games there were that were 24 miles away. And then we figured out how many the total number of games were. And then we expressed that fraction as a percent. So there were 5 games that were that far away. Total number of games was 24. So 5 out of 24 can be written as 5/24. 5 divided by 24 is 0.2 0.08, and actually 3333 forever. And then we multiply by 100, we got 20 and 8/10%. Okay, and then if we get to bubble gritable responses on the STAR test, then we would put the 2 in the tens place, the 0 in the ones place, and the 8 in the tens place, and then we bubble in the numbers underneath that. And you'll notice the ones that we don't use, we do not bubble at all. We just leave it completely blank. Okay? All right, please come to class. We're going to do more examples together. Please look at all the other associated videos for more support. And you can actually read the book and look back into the lesson for also some support and some help. Thank you.